Back here now for the last segment on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast. Just looking over some of the rookies and keeping up to date with them as the offseason goes on. Now focusing in on Marvin Harrison Jr., selected as the first non quarterback in this year's draft. Marvin Harrison has been another young prospect to shine for their team early on through mandatory minicamps and OTAs. With all of that sort of fiasco going on at the beginning of this offseason with the Fanatics issue, with the jersey not being on sale yet for the Arizona Cardinals. That sort of took center stage around Marvin Harrison Jr. And then once we got past that, it seemed to flow right into what I expected to be one of the easiest transitions for a guy that I've said before, to me, is one of the most ready players in draft history that I've seen recently, in just recent memory that I've been following the draft and covering it. I said it before the draft and before any of the conversation really started happening that you could take Marvin Harrison back in February and in March, stick him in any offense, and he'd be okay to really just fly in there and play right away. He was ready from the start of this college season and even before that, and it obviously helps having your dad be one of the great wide receivers, obviously, in the NFL. I think that and his maturity, how he's grown, and the skill set, obviously, that he brings physically and just on his ability on his own, I think just makes him one of the most complete wide receivers in the NFL already. It's crazy to say, but I think that highly of him. You get to a point sometimes with these wide receivers that come in at a level like a Justin Jefferson, maybe a Devontae Smith to a certain extent, a CeeDee Lamb, a Malik Neighbors this year as well. You come in, you see them on tape, and just some of the things they do, some of the skill set they bring is so good and just so undeniably just fine-tuned and really smooth that I can't help but think anything other than they're going to be extremely efficient at the next level. And that's so far what has been happening with Marvin Harrison Jr. Head coach Jonathan Gannon has said that Harrison has met and even exceeded all expectations so far that he had of him, already lining up as the number one wide receiver during minicamp that started last Tuesday. And the biggest component will be the chemistry aspect, obviously, with Kyler Murray. Murray's never had a wide receiver like Marvin Harrison Jr., at least from my recent memory that I could bring up in this conversation. Larry Fitzgerald was up there, but he was towards the tail end of his career. Now with Marvin, just getting him into the NFL right as Kyler Murray is entering his prime, so to say, or the most crucial years of his career, this couldn't have lined up any better because this offense really needed an influx of something like this, just an undeniable talent that you could throw the ball to. If he's covered, he's not really covered. He's open at all times, and it's going to help them out tremendously because, again, Kyler Murray does have the ability to buy time back there, get and wait for other receivers to get open because it is extremely hard to tackle him. To have Marvin Harrison out there, he's not going to get doubled right away, obviously. As highly as I talk of him, he's not going to get doubled right away or be seen as a major threat because he is still a rookie. So that should give a little bit of an inclination to us and think that right away we could see Marvin Harrison really produce at a high level if he comes in healthy, everything's going smoothly, and heading into that first game, if he has nothing else to worry about, I see him stepping right into the limelight and being a superstar for the Arizona Cardinals. And last season, the Arizona Cardinals, just based on the production they got from this position, they were the seventh fewest team in receiving yards in the NFL at 4,430. The lead receiver, Marquise Brown, only put up 574 yards. And like I mentioned, having a father like Marvin Harrison have you prepare for this moment and know really everything that you need to know of being a professional and very good player at this level has helped Marvin Harrison Jr. tremendously. And it goes without saying, just the production that you see from Marquise Brown last year and what you could potentially get from Marvin Harrison Jr. is almost night and day. No disrespect to Marquise Brown, but I just think Marvin, almost if you're building a wide receiver on Madden or something like that, in your mind, you're thinking of someone to build it like, have the skill set like, you're going to build it like Marvin Harrison Jr. That's just how he is. He's a freak out there, and he's going to be a very good asset to the Arizona Cardinals. And further, another comment from Eric: do you think Harrison Jr. will blow up like Jamar Chase? That's a good question. With Kyler Murray always a threat to leave the pocket and run, it should create opportunities for him down the field. I think so. It is a little tough just because Jamar and that connection he had with Joe Burrow. I think that helps so much to have already been playing with your quarterback for, I think, a year or two in college at LSU. Then you just continue that on. Very lucky to continue that on in the NFL. It almost makes it a lot easier. It definitely makes it a lot easier, but it just makes it so much of a smoother transition in all aspects to come into the pros now with somebody that you have such a great connection with. I can't imagine how much easier it makes that for any player, but at the same time, with Marvin and Kyler, I think Marvin is so good at this point that it's not going to take too long for them to be on the same page, really, when you have a guy at this sort of level. And they are built a little bit different, so that also helps. And I also think that most people would agree that Joe is a better quarterback than Kyler Murray, so you have also that aspect of it. But in terms of what I can expect from him and my expectations for Marvin Harrison Jr., he's definitely going to make the Cardinals better. They finished with a 4-13 record last year, so it's hard to get even worse than that with adding a guy like Marvin Harrison. And to give my prediction on what we can expect, I really thought about this. I have a stat line of what we could expect from Marvin Harrison, and I just came up with expecting 86 yards from him in his first year, over 1,000 yards, and probably around 5 to 6 touchdowns in my estimation. That's the stat line: 86 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 5 to 6 touchdowns in his first year as that lead receiver for the Arizona Cardinals. I think he's going to be that good to receive 86 receptions. He's definitely going to be the number one target. They have Trey McBride there as the tight end, if I got his name right. But they have a good tight end. Their offense is definitely better with James Conner than their defense. Their defense is what scares me the most, and if they're capable of being in a shootout with teams, this certainly helps adding Marvin Harrison, but I think their defense is really lacking, and they're not really built to stop high-powered offenses yet. So that's definitely the weaker part of this team, but offense has definitely gotten better. I think Kyler showed a lot of potential in the last few games that he did come back from injury last year to sort of be confident in building something about that in 2024, where you're going to have your whole team healthy and Kyler right at the start of the season. Again, Eric, what do you got? We got my league draft next month. From a fantasy perspective, should he be picked up in the first few rounds? That's a tough question. Fantasy is something you got to sit down and really think about. Marvin Harrison in the first few rounds. What are we considering first few rounds? Anything earlier than maybe 4, I wouldn't do per se. I think 4 is the absolute earliest I would get him. I don't know how many teams you have in your fantasy league, or if it's PPR or anything like that. We do PPR, and it's 10 players in our league, so really getting to the 4th round, 5th round is still pretty early. I don't know if you have more than that. If you have more than that, then 4th round, 3rd round would probably not be too crazy. But if you have anything less than 12 or something like that, and you have another 10-man league, I would say earlier than 5 or 4 might be a little bit too high for him, but he is certainly going to be good. I have a lot of high expectations for him. And also, as the final point for this segment, you have Kyler Murray on 10 guys on this fantasy team. Yeah, so you're almost rocking with the same amount that I am, or exactly the same amount. So I think you wait till after the 4th, potentially after the 5th round, and if he's still there, to have him on your bench potentially or as a flex option, that's the way I would go. I'm a little skeptical on rookies, just depending on how good they are. I would like to wait on them. So anything before 4 or 5, I think is a little bit too early. But fantasy drafts are crazy in saying that. But like I mentioned on this last point I was talking about, Kyler Murray just came in and got a massive 5-year, $230 contract extension in 2022. So bringing in Marvin Harrison Jr. to help out Kyler Murray, I think, is a great move to almost validate that contract that you gave Kyler, because now you're putting him in a good spot to where if he doesn't perform well, then you have another tough decision to work out. But you have certainly done everything that you need to do to help out Kyler, to make this offense a lot better. Drafting arguably the best receiver in the NFL draft this year, I think, was certainly going to help out this team. They're in a tough division, so it's going to be even more exciting. I think he's going to have a great year. Let me know what you guys think of Marvin Harrison Jr. Am I hyping him up too much, or maybe not enough in some of your guys' estimation? But that is the end of that segment, and that will be all on today's show of the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast. I want to thank you guys for tuning in yet again. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe, and also checking out the network on Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok for more of the network's content. And also, if you want to see more of me and this show, check out the GSMC Sports Network channel and the GSMC Podcast Network channel on YouTube for a lot more content around the NFL. And as a final reminder, tune in every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for more conversations and discussions around the NFL with me, Manny Maradiaga, as your host. Thanking you guys again for joining me, and I'll see you guys all back here again tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. 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 Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to